you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. Switch gears, and I want to talk about a story that was just absolutely fascinating from over the course of this weekend, involving a theme that we've discussed a lot on this show over the last couple weeks, but certainly with a new twist, and that is a pro football legend, a football legend coaching at an HBCU. Over the last couple months, we have talked a lot about Coach Prime Deion Sanders, was at Jackson State, now at Colorado. But on Saturday, and really over the last month, we have gotten quite a twist on that narrative, as Ed Reed, who of course is a football legend in his own right, had been hired at Bethune Cookman. And on Saturday, after I guess you could call it a controversy-filled less than a month on the job, announces that he is stepping away, but is he really stepping away? And essentially, this became a mega story on Saturday. Ed Reed had been hired by Bethune Cookman. He leaves the school Saturday under very mysterious circumstances. He had some very interesting quotes in the midst of his departure. So let's break it all down and let's discuss. And where I want to start is the obvious, right? Coach Prime set the blueprint on what can be done with the right person, the right coach, the right situation. And it certainly feels like a lot of HBCU schools are trying to replicate the Coach Prime model. We've talked about it before. Eddie George is the head coach at Tennessee State. Hugh Jackson is the head coach at Grambling. Yes, that Hugh Jackson, former Cleveland Browns head coach. And about a month ago, 27 days ago now, as you listen, Ed Reed, the Pro Football Hall of Famer, was hired at Bethune Cookman. And so obviously it was done believing that, hey, maybe we can follow the Coach Prime blueprint. Come in, pro football legend, NFL mindset, cultivate the relationships to build a great football program, a great community, something the school can be proud of, all of that good stuff. Unfortunately, from the beginning, this thing seemed, doomed from the start, okay? Just last Sunday, a week ago, 8 days ago from when you were listening to this, the first little sign that maybe things weren't going very well happened when Ed Reed was seen on a golf cart. He goes on Instagram Live and he starts complaining about the setup at Bethune Cookman and specifically what he inherited in terms of the good and the bad, mostly the bad. Want to read you what he said so there's no confusion, but this was Ed Reed shortly after taking the job on campus. He's actually with his team cleaning up the campus. Here's what Ed Reed said. He said, Prime was not wrong about what he was saying. Again, this is Ed Reed as Bethune Cookman's head coach on Instagram Live. All y'all out here with y'all little opinions are full of crap. But needless to say, I just pulled up to work. We're going to try to help y'all too, because I know a lot of HBCUs need help. I'm just here to help first. I see it all too clearly. All of our HBCUs need help, and they need help because of the people who are running it. It's broken mentalities out here. And then he continued later on in that Instagram Live, I've been here for a week and a half and have done more than people who have been here freaking years. And I'm not even hired yet. Damn shame. I should leave. I'm not even under contract doing this. And so Ed Reed said that 2 Sundays ago, so probably about 8-9 days from the time you're listening to this. And it was very controversial at the time. Comes in, as he said, he hadn't even signed a contract, and he's already criticizing the school, criticizing the setup, whatever. And so early last week, Ed Reed did apologize. He said, I shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have put the family business out in public. And he did have to apologize. After that, it stays a little bit quiet. We're trying to figure out, okay, is there really a problem? Was it a one-off? Why did Ed Reed say that? And then Saturday, we woke up to kind of a wild story and a wild, unfortunate conclusion to this Ed Reed situation. He releases a statement. It's crazy because I'm apparently on Ed Reed's official mailing list, some stuff, some interviews I did years ago. And I see this statement and it kind of blows me away. Basically, it looks as though it's a resignation letter, but it doesn't really have the words that are normally associated with a resignation letter. Here is some of what Ed Reed said. He said, Bethune Cookman has been working with my legal team to craft a contract terms with the language and resources we knew were needed to build a successful football program. It's my desire to not only coach football, but to be an agent of change that most people just talk about being. However, after weeks of negotiations, I've been informed that the university won't be ratifying my contract and won't make good on the agreement we had in principle, which had provisions and resources best needed to support the student athletes. I was committed to coaching and cultivating relationship with the university, players, community, and fans. It's extremely disappointing this won't be happening. So that was about 11 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday. He is basically sort of resigning, but not resigning, basically saying the school has not given him what he needs, and he thinks it's best for all parties just to move on. Sad, disappointing, whatever. But then, like an hour after that, we get a video of Ed Reed addressing his team about his decision or the decision for him to step away. At that point, he's very emotional. At that point, he makes it very clear this is not his decision. And he says some very interesting things. I should mention, by the way, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, came on to an Instagram Live with him from Colorado, basically said, you know how it is. It's unfortunate, but you got to do what's best for you. Move on. I'm there if you need me. I'll hop on a plane. But why this is interesting, Ed Reed said some very interesting things that were caught on camera and then shared on social media. And I want to read just some of what Ed Reed said. And I apologize for doing a lot of reading right now, but I want to contextualize why this story is so crazy. So this is what Ed Reed said to his team after announcing that he was leaving. He said, I'm not withdrawing my name. They don't want me here because I tell the truth. This hurts because I know people don't care about these kids like I do. And then to me, what I think is the smoking gun in everything that he said there are some corrupt people in this world, some evil people who do not care about the kids like I do. I got receipts. There's all sorts of stuff going on around here. To which I say, wow, Ed Reed, I don't want to speak for Ed Reed, but it feels very much like he's saying there is a bigger systematic problem at play other than us getting enough money for a new practice field or a new weight room or whatever. And so what I want to do is kind of contextualize some of this and kind of just obviously share my opinion. And there are a few things that I can say definitively about this situation. Obviously, only Ed Reed, only his closest confidants, only the people at Bethune Cookman that are checking the books know the absolute 100% truth. But what I can tell you is a few things. One, I don't claim to know Ed Reed, okay? I'm not going to say, oh, Ed Reed, yeah, me and him smoke cigars. No. But what I can tell you is a couple things. One, did have the chance to interview him one time and really had a chance to get to know a lot of people who were around him during the Miami days. When I worked at foxsports.com, I did a huge story on the University of Miami 2001 team that won a national championship. Ed Reed was, of course, the captain of that team and All-American on that team. Maybe the greatest college football team of all time. But I interviewed Ed Reed. I interviewed Phil Buchanan, first-round pick of the Oakland Raiders at the time, the then Oakland Raiders. I interviewed Frank Gore. I interviewed Clinton Portis, Andre Johnson, on and on. Santana Moss, who was Ed Reed's roommate. And the one thing I learned, Ed Reed ran that. Ed Reed was essentially the coach, the GM, the strength and conditioning coach, the star player, everything. I'll tell you a true funny story. I interviewed Larry Coker, the head coach of that national championship team. He takes over for Butch Davis that year. Larry Coker told me that on his first day on the job, Ed Reed said to him, he said, Coach, you worry about the game plan. I am going to handle the discipline. I'll take care of everything else. You do what you got to do. Put us in a position to win. I'll make sure these other 84 guys stay in line. And so why I bring that up is because I can't tell you that I know Ed Reed. I can't tell you that we're best friends and we hang out and we whatever. But what I can tell you is I know enough people around him to know a couple things. One, nobody puts in more work than that guy. Phil Buchanan told me, he said, man, when I was at Miami, I watched more film than when I did in the NFL because Ed Reed dragged me to that facility at 7 a.m. every Saturday when everybody else was out having a good time on the weekends at college. We were watching film Saturday mornings. And so Ed Reed puts everything that he has into the sport. Ed Reed, my understanding is he puts everything into everything that he does. There is no BS. There is no nonsense. There is no this. There is no that. If Ed Reed is putting his name on it, he is giving you 100% of Ed Reed, but he expects that in return. If he's going to be in the film room at 7 a.m. and you're the cornerback playing alongside him, your butt better be in the film room at 7 a.m. alongside him. And so that is one thing that I know about Ed Reed, is that if he shows up to a place and he doesn't see the commitment to have success at the highest level, and by the way, I'm sure it's not just Bethune Cookman. I'm sure it's been where he's been an assistant coach. I'm sure it's been where he played. I'm sure it's been high school, college, NFL. If you don't have that same level of commitment as Ed Reed, oh boy, you're going to have a problem with Ed Reed. And that to me is what I see here. I see a school that hasn't had success on the field. I see a school that to me, it appears as though, I don't even want to speak about the school. What I can say is only what Ed Reed is saying, which is that it ain't no lie. These facilities aren't where they need to be. There's garbage in my office. That was one thing that he did say on that Instagram Live. I showed up, there was garbage in my office. There's garbage strewn around this campus. Have some pride. Again, it goes back to what he said on this Instagram Live. He said, we're working to try to help you too, because I know a lot of HBCUs need help. I'm just here to help first. And so when he says he cares about kids, I believe it, because he cares about football and he cares about having success in anything you do at the highest level. Don't know Ed Reed, but know enough people to know that that is an absolute fact. Beyond that, what I would say, some of the commentary that he said about the status of HBCUs, about where things are and how they need to be fixed and changed, it was very interesting, right? These are Ed Reed's words, not mine. He said, I'm not withdrawing this name. They don't want me here because I tell the truth. This hurts because I know people don't care about these kids like I do. He takes this a step further. There are some corrupt people in this world, some evil people who do not care about kids like I do. And so I think if you just see that, if you just hear, you can sit there and say, oh, that's a crazy person. That's just a person that's mad. He didn't get what he wanted. He's not going to do the job. They fired him, whatever. I can't speak to if Ed Reed is 100% right, if he's 100% wrong. What I can say is there's a couple interesting things that have come out that maybe speaks to the fact that Ed Reed is saying some stuff publicly that people don't want out publicly, okay? To me, this doesn't feel like just Ed Reed saying this stuff, because here's why. There are two very prominent people that have essentially confirmed what Ed Reed said. One was his former teammate, Edgerrin James. Somebody, I won't say who, but somebody close to this situation sent me a Instagram post that Edgerrin James, who was Ed Reed's teammate at Miami, posted on social media. Here is what Edgerrin James said. He said, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, Ed Reed. I hate for those kids not getting a chance to witness what makes the great, great. Your vision and the outside support was about to have a greater impact than most people realized, but shrugging shoulders emoji. And this is where it gets interesting. Shout out to Shaq. Yes, he's talking about Shaquille O'Neal. And those other billionaires you had ready to invest in your vision and build new facilities at Bethune Cookman. To which I say, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. But if one of Ed Reed's best friends is saying you had people ready to invest in this school and you're being held back, that is a systematic, fundamental infrastructure problem that goes well beyond Ed Reed and maybe well beyond Bethune Cookman. You know what it reminds me of? We talked about it on the show a few weeks ago. John Calipari's ready to build a new practice facility in Kentucky. His AD won't let him raise money. Or he raised the money and his AD won't let him spend it. Well, it's the same thing here. And you can sit here and say, oh, Edgerrin James is Ed Reed's best friend. I find this interesting as well. Edgerrin James has sent multiple children of his. Edgerrin James is I don't know him personally. Another one, he is an incredible guy. Single father. His wife tragically passed away. He has sent all of his kids to college. One of them is actually going to play basketball at Cincinnati next year. But several of his kids have gone to HBCUs. So if there's one person that you would think wants to see HBCU succeed, it'd be Edgerrin James. He's literally invested his own money into these schools. So to me, it can't be he's just trying to defend his friend. Is he trying to defend his friend, or is he trying to tell the truth? Is he trying to elevate all of these schools overall? Because again, Edgerrin James has literally put his money where his mouth is with his own money, with his own children. Beyond Edgerrin James, I find it very interesting. This is stuff, the problems with money, the problems with finances, HBCUs. I'm not accusing any one person of anything. But if you listen to Coach Prime closely, if you listen to Deion Sanders closely, this is stuff he talked about when he was at Jackson State. I found it really interesting. He did an interview, Coach Prime, with Shannon Sharp, who was, by the way, in the news in his own right on Saturday or Friday night. He did an interview with Shannon Sharp, Coach Prime. And one of the things he said that frustrated him the most was that there were some financial situations at Jackson State that he wasn't very happy with. He kind of said, he's like, how are all of these HBCUs, how are all these athletic departments so broke? And he said he was willing to bring in his own team of auditors and people to look into it, to help everyone, to elevate everyone. And he was basically told no. He was told that, you have to play in certain neutral site games for the good of HBCUs and the SWAC and the MEAC and whatever. And he said, that's fine. We want to do it. But if we have a home game, we could potentially raise $1.5 million for the school with each home game. So why don't we just play at home? Why are we giving away money to somebody else? And where is that money going? So where is the money going is an interesting conversation that Deion Sanders himself brought up. And I think the one thing, and again, I spoke with somebody who's close to Ed Reed on Saturday, and he said, look, Coach Prime has a way of kind of saying things diplomatically, hinting at things without telling you, leading you there without telling you. Ed Reed's just going to tell you. And so this is a sad story. I think there's more layers to it. And I'll close by saying this. On Sunday morning, and I follow Ed Reed on Instagram, so every time he goes live, it pops up on my social media. He was on live on Sunday morning on Instagram. And you know who he was talking to? His former players. I don't even know if you can call it that. He was only on campus for 25 days. His former players who were walking around campus without him picking up trash. And so I saw that. And maybe it was all for show and all for this and all for that. But you know what it said to me? It said to me that Ed Reed in a short time made a major impact on that campus. And it also said to me one other thing. I think Bethune Cookman has some problems. I don't think Ed Reed was one. Going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.